Okay, Nate, today you wanted to talk about weather change, whether humans can change the weather.
Yeah, well, I had to think about controlling the weather and whether hypothetically we could develop technology to control the weather. Um, People get really uncomfortable with anything where they feel they're playing God or manipulating or altering nature and the way that nature works, but I don't think it's such a bad thing. About it was about 8 years ago I started thinking about what a civilization 1,000 years more advanced than us would be like, and I determined many things in thinking that. Physicist Michio Kaku, who I refer to frequently, who is a futurist, talks about the next step in our civilization through technology. And one of the things he says is we will come to a point where we can control the weather. Now, people shouldn't be scared of controlling the weather. You've got to look at it this way. It's like you go out into your garden, you plant plants from different parts of the world, and you organise that space of environment so that it is how you want it to be, and you care for it, and you're looking after it, and you're creating your own little ecosystem. So we can do that on a planetary level. The key is that we just need to have a complete understanding of how environments work, which we don't have at the moment because the environment's a extremely complicated system. We don't understand how to predict weather patterns and what will happen in the weather, but we can predict the weather to some extent, but it's not a perfect craft. So if you can understand the environment completely and understand every aspect of the environment, we should be able to come in and control and manipulate the environment and not do any negative long-term damage. People say, oh, if we start mucking around with how the environment works, it will destroy the environment. Not necessarily. If we know what we're doing and we study the environment with our science and understand it completely, we should be able to manipulate the weather and not have any negative side effects. People always, with things about playing God, I think they imagine all these negative side effects, which aren't necessarily going to be the case. So you've got to look at it this way. It's like the way I think about it now that I think about advanced civilizations and where we'll be in 1,000 years. It's like we can go to Mars, a planet like Mars, where it was dead and arid, no oxygen, no atmosphere. And if we know how to, if we've figured out the technology on how to do it, we should be able to terraform Mars and we should be able to create a livable environment on Mars. And then we've taken a dead planet, which is just sitting there and isn't in any good state at all, and is going to waste, and we've rejuvenated it because we're gardeners. We're humanity, the gardeners of the solar system. We come over to Mars, a dead planet, and we revegetate it, and we give it an atmosphere. And we'll probably do this with robots. We'll probably send robots down to do this. And, if we can do that, we can transform Mars from a dead planet into a beautiful, lush, vegetated planet. And I think that's amazing. I think that's a good thing. So I think with things like controlling the weather, people don't understand, or they have this negative view that we're going to somehow do something wrong and make a mistake and destroy the environment. Not necessarily. If we know what we're doing, we should be able to control and manipulate the weather quite effectively without any negative side effects. So I'm not afraid of playing God if we do it properly. So you can look at what Michio Kaku says about different classes of civilizations. Michio Kaku talks about the Kardashev scale, which ranks civilizations, I think, based on their energy consumption. And he talks about what civilizations 100 years ahead of us would be able to do and what civilizations 1,000 years ahead of us would be able to do. And I really think people are limited. Average people seem to be very limited in this current thinking of what's happening currently in the world. I try to project forward hundreds of years in the future to get a better perspective of where we're going to be in the future, because people don't realise in the future we're going to be doing stuff like manipulating the weather and genetic engineering and all this crazy stuff. That's all going to be what the generations 300 years from now live. That's just going to be their day-to-day life, and we're going to have computer chips in our brains, and that's just going to be everyday life for those people. It's not for us, but for those people it will be. So we can manipulate the weather, and we can control. We're the global gardeners. You see, we should view ourselves as the custodians of the earth. Now, some people say we're not we're not the most evolved species on the planet. Look, from a scientific position, we are the most evolved species on the planet. You can say things like, oh, humanity acts more like a virus. We just go around destroying the planet. Or you can say, oh, the animals have a stronger sense of compassion and attachment to the earth and the natural world than us. We're just a problem for the planet. But it's because of the way our brains are developed. We are the most evolved species on the planet. We have the highest cognitive function. So we can do things which the animals can't do. We can study the environment, we can master it through science, we can understand every aspect of how the environment works, and then we can manipulate the weather in a favourable way, right? So, and that's because we have this high cognitive capacity of the human brain. So I think we should view ourselves as the gardeners of the earth, and if you view yourself as a loving gardener who is coming in and manipulating the weather with only positive intentions and doing so safely and responsibly, then why not manipulate the weather? If we know we're doing it properly and it's not going to have any negative side effect, why is it a bad thing? Couldn't it be a very beneficial thing to be able to control weather? If there's somewhere where there's a desperate drought and people are dying, we may be able to trigger rain in that area so that area can rejuvenate. We may be able to reverse the effects of global warming and climate change. The main thing I think about our effect on the environment is using clean energy. If we can just start using exclusively clean energy, then we can come in and we can actually use terraforming weather control technology to repair the damage that we've done to the environment. So, we can talk about things like controlling the weather and playing God on the planet. It's all about making sure we do it properly. The only thing that matters is that we do it properly. And we can go and we can create a livable environment on Mars, and then there can be a whole group of people living and breathing oxygen on Mars in a few hundred years, and then we can go out to some other moons of Jupiter or other places in the solar system that are dead worlds, and we can terraform those worlds, and we can start colonies. I don't like that word. We can start civilizations on other planets in the solar system, which would have just been sitting there going to waste had we not come along and rejuvenated them with our technology. So have a think about weather control.